Well, 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 I guess you're the reason I have to wear all of this get-up. Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight I'm taking a look at the McFarlane Toys Game of Thrones Night King, Daenerys Targaryen, and Jon Snow. Now, these couldn't have come at a better moment. The show, the final season, is right around the corner. The hype is kind of building up. I'm excited at seeing where it's going, and to have toys at the same time, that's amazing. But looking at the packages, it's your standard McFarlane Toys packaging. Clamshell, kind of indestructible to get into sometimes, but it nicely shows off the figure with just a little bit of graphics stuck around it. On the back we see, apparently the blinding light of 1,000 suns, but you see everyone in the wave. I'm looking at these three. I already looked at Arya, but she'll pop up in this review several places. And then there's the dragon, which a lot of people seem like they're getting frustrated that this actually came out smaller scale, but it was always advertised as that. I don't have that to look at, but it is popping up at Target right now, so I may grab it just for the pure sheer curiosity of it. But I'm gonna get these open and see what is going on here. Okay, out of the package, there's some positives, there's some negatives. I feel like the positives outweigh the negatives, but looking at it right here, you can already see one of the negatives I'm gonna get to. But looking at Daenerys, if you watched my review of Arya, you know what you're in for here. Man, the sculpt is freaking amazing. Just the texture they're able to get into the clothing, I could sit and stare at this for a long time. And to be honest, I have on all three figures here. The dragon scale look of this scarf over her shoulder right here, from the shoulders to the bottom of the skirt is all one overlay piece. This chain is even a part of that as far as I can tell. It almost, because of the paint and sculpt work, it almost looks like a separate piece, and several times I've went, is that? Surely this comes off, but nope, it's part of the rubber piece. Now, unlike Arya, they did split the skirt this time, so her legs aren't as hindered. I almost feel like I need to cut up a little higher like I did with Arya, but it's Daenerys, she's gonna stand. I'm not too worried about warrior poses with her. Now the hair sculpt is amazing. I'm starting with the hair, yes. Just look at it, it's beautiful, it's braided, it's coming around. But you get around to the face, and yeah, it's not the best likeness. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice sculpt. I love the paintwork on here, but it's just not 100% Emilia Clarke. Getting to Jon Snow, I'm gonna run out of words and phrases and things to say about how beautiful the base sculpt is here. You get this quilted look all over the upper tunic, the bottom of that coat. You see the underneath right here matches all the way up to here. Yeah, probably in this camera you're thinking it's all the same color, but this is actually a darker brownish, blackish color, and then here and here is actually lighter. So it does match up. Trust me. The wear and tear on this armor plate up here, the patina to it, the kind of dark wash they've put on it, it's perfect. I love it. And then the little sculpt work here, and well, pretty much everywhere on this figure is amazing. Going even further from Arya and even Daenerys, they've split the lower robe or lower coat here, and it's here, and it's here, and it's a little bit here. I'm gonna call that a split. I guess it just fit into the costume design a little bit better than the dresses. But under that you can see the legs, you got texture to the pants, the wrinkles up here at the top of the boot, and then the boot itself. And I'm loving the angles on these things because it's almost non-existent, which on Jon, maybe a little bit more true than the others, but again, we'll get to that. Again, starting with the hair, I don't know why I fixate on hair, maybe because I lost all mine, but I love the sculpt here. It just works for Snow in the last season, and really, you get around to the likeness. Yes, he's squinting a little, but I feel like this looks a lot more like Kit Harington than the other two figures I've looked at so far. Nice sculpt, nice paintwork. I like how they came in here with the little hairs. Same with the beard right here. It's kind of a little bit patchy, but it still looks nice. And then getting to the Night King, another just out of the park beautiful sculpt. Again, all the texture here and up on the shoulder pads. Again, it's hard to tell that that's actually a rubber overlay. The wraps on the arms just look aged. I like the paint job they've done on top of it, that snowy look, but it's also worn snowy, if snow can wear stuff down. Same for the skin tone. It's got that dead gray to it, but the kind of the same white dry brush over it to tie the whole piece together. The ridges on the lower robes, again, split up the sides so you get full leg movement. See the sculpt on the pants, nice texture. The shin guards, nicely punched in there. And then down to the feet, that matches all the way up. And I think because this is non-human, I guess you could say, the dead look to it. The likeness here is going to be so much better. It's like making an action figure of Darth Maul. You can nail it a lot better than Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon because you're just going for this kind of alien look, and your eye is drawn to the stuff up here, it's drawn to the color, it's drawn to the blue eyes, it's drawn away from the actual likeness. And nothing wrong with that because, whew, this is badass. Just look at the eyes staring into your soul. It's trying to freeze your heart. Just look. Give in. You love it. I'm going to go over the articulation on all three really quick because it's pretty much standard across the whole line, including Arya. Before we get into that, and some of it's a little bit limited, some seems to be missing, but they did tell us at Toy Fair going forward with this line, they're going to try to integrate their 22 points of articulation that we saw with the Fortnite line. So hopefully in the future we'll still get figures that fit this aesthetic, that all fit together, but they'll be more articulated. Going over articulation, the neck in standing type figures, I feel like is always the most important point, and the ball joint that McFarlane Toys has integrated into these figures, it works. This big ball of hair in the back kind of gets in the way, but you can look up, you can look down, does bury the chin, nice tilt. And because of the rubber overlay at the collar, it just gets out of the way. It does kind of push back on it, but not too bad. Then of course swivel. Hinge of swivel at the shoulder comes up almost to 90. Swivels around, and again, torso overlay does get out of the way. Hinge of swivel at the elbow comes up to 90. Not the greatest, but it's nice. What's this right here? It almost looks like a factory rectangle cut out of the shoulder, and you can kind of see the articulation under there. It's not on this side. The elbow also swivels. Figure Arts type ball joint at the wrist, so you can get hinge, it swivels, and then you can manipulate that around to where it's up and down. Still not a lot at the torso. There is something under there, but the overlay is sealed all the way down. So it gets a little movement. I just don't know what. Hinge and swivel at the hips, but again, because the skirt only comes up to there, you're not going to get full movement, but judging by the rest of the characters in this line, she can come up to 90 if the dress allowed it. Hinge and swivel at the knee comes up to about 90, and then that swivels. Then there's a ball joint at the ankle, but looking at it, it's damn near seamless. You get forward, you get back, then you get nice tilt. But remember, that's because the leg here is going down into the foot. And remember that when we get to Jon. For Jon, same ball joint at the bottom of the neck, and you think, oh man, that's a metal plate. That's not actually metal. It does get out of the way of the head movement. Hinge and swivel at the shoulder doesn't quite make 90. Then swivels around. Hinge and swivel at the elbow, just 90. Swivel. Same type of wrist. The quilting, or whatever this is, coming down over it does hinder it a little bit more, but it still gets movement. There's a swivel at the waist that turns the whole thing. Hinge and swivel at the hip comes all the way out. I do have a little bit of looseness to the left one. I'll have to get up in there, do some floor polish or some nail polish or something. Just the way that's a hard plastic at the hip, it works without the skirt piece kicking on it, but once the skirt piece is on it, it kicks down. It stays, but once there's movement back, boop, but it doesn't really hinder from standing. So yeah. Hinge and swivel at the knee, again because of the costume design, doesn't quite make 90. Swivel, and then ball joint at the ankle. But remember what I said about Daenerys, Jon's boot sculpt comes down over the foot, so it doesn't get as much movement because it crashes into those wrinkles at the bottom. I see why they did it, and again, it looks almost seamless, but the movement suffers from it. And then for the Night King, he actually doesn't have anything surrounding his neck, so you can actually see the articulation. The only figure in this series that does that. Well, I'm a liar. The collar does come up here, and it does kind of get in the way from upward movement, but it gets good down. Tilt, you gotta kind of twist the head, kind of get it around the ball joint. Hinge and swivel at the shoulder, doesn't quite make 90. Armor does get out of the way of swivel. Elbow, not quite 90. Swivel, same type situation at the wrist. You can full on see the swivel at this waist. Hinge and swivel at the hips, all the way out, most of the way forward. Hinge at the knee, not quite 90. Swivels. Then the ankle, same as Jon, this comes down over the foot, kind of hinders foot movement. You do get some tilt, but for some reason the left one is sculpted further down, so you get more movement to the left foot. For accessories, Daenerys comes with these nicely sculpted and painted pieces for her war room board. For Jon Snow, he comes with his sword. Nicely done here, and look how straight this thing is. That is perfect. Nice sculpt work here on the pommel, the different colors going all the way through the sword. It looks like a little bitty sword, and what more could you ask for here? But he also comes with a little dragon glass dagger. Now this is actually a smoky translucent material. You can actually see through it, and that's kind of neat. And then for the Night King, he comes with this. translucent material up here looks like ice. If I didn't know any better, ooh, cool. And then the paintwork down here on the handle, the little studs are painted gold compared to the more brownish color of the rest of the handle. And the same thing can be said for this sword slash spear or whatever it is. I feel like these should be soft, but I like the wrap look here. It goes up over that translucent ice blade. It just works. What's crazy is the hands for Daenerys, nice and soft. Maybe because they're small, they're not gloved, but you can get things in and out of her hand. That completely works. But for Jon and the Night King, it's made out of a tough material that's just hard as hell to open. Work it in there real fast before it closes, and then wait for the plastic to close around it. That's how I do it anyway. I'm sure you could heat it up, soften it a little, put the sword in the hand. The dragon glass doesn't have a pommel on it, so it's a little bit easier to just slip into the top of the hand. And then look how thick the handle is here compared to the hand, along with this end piece that's not gonna work. Get it in there. That's probably staying in there. Okay, the sculpt, beautiful. Articulation, passable. But here's where people may have a problem with this line. The Night King and Jon is about 6 1/8 inches, while Daenerys stands at about 6, Arya stands at about 5 1/2. The actual height of the actors is 6'2", 5'8", 5'2", and 5'1". So Jon, Daenerys, and Arya, a scale to themselves, seems to be pretty close. Jon is taller than Daenerys, Daenerys is taller than Arya, but it's not quite 6-inch scale, it's a little bit larger. But by going by the line's established scale, the Night King should be taller, about to the top of the screen right there. Looking at the Funko Daenerys that I bought over the weekend just to compare, the Funko is a little bit over 5 inches, which is perfect 6-inch scale if you're going by actor heights. But looking at this, this seems to work fairly well. Again, the Funko closer to actual 6-inch scale. I'm not calling the McFarlane line 7-inch. It's just slightly larger. It's a scale to its own. Most American lines like this have a scale to their own. But you can definitely tell the McFarlane is a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, and I thought about it. You can't switch the heads because McFarlane's ball joint is at the bottom of the neck. The Funko is at the top of the neck, going up into the skull. But I kind of feel like this totally works, even though the height of this for 6-inch scale would be this tall, or close to. He's 6 1/2, so it's not too far off. But I feel like this works. Hell, even the colors of the skin almost match up. And they both have ice blades down at the bottom. The aesthetic definitely goes together between the two lines. Scale, not so much. The McFarlane is a little bit larger, the Funko is a little bit smaller, but Funko wasn't without their scale issues too. Oh, little Drogo. So at the end of the day, I'm super happy to have these figures. Sure, they're not perfect. Sure, the scale is kind of wonky, but oh man, they are so beautiful. I just love the sculpt work, I love the paint work, and like I talked about earlier, the articulation is an ongoing thing with McFarlane Toys. The determining factor here is going to be Series 2. Yes, these are a nice start, a beautiful start really, but Series 2 is where we see where they're going to progress from here. Are they going to give us more of the last season looks? Are they going to go further back into the series? Are we going to get a Ned or a Jaime, or I want a Drogo. I want an actual Drogo that fits into the display. Even though the scale may be a little, I want a bigger one. That's all I want. Okay, not all I want. I want some more stuff. But Drogo's a biggie. But as is, standing on the shelf, it makes for a nice little display. And once again, I'm looking forward to more. I want to see where this goes. So if you like the review, comment, like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.